privacy, my church, my synagogue. I control everything that I can see. He lays out in this letter to Mr. Cable. And he says that then you would control, at the next level would be the city, the county, the state, and then the federal government absolutely last, and only do the things in the Constitution. And that otherwise we as free Americans would have complete control over our lives. And when you do that, you solve the problem we have today with out-of-control federal spending, and out-of-control federal government that's spending too much, taxing too much, taking too much of our liberty and our freedoms away, and is really on a path, we're on a path to become Argentina, is really what's going on. It's very scary. But if you apply Republican principles, the knot will untie itself. And this, no matter what the problem is, any problem y'all throw at me, any question you throw at me, we can apply core Jeffersonian principles, and whatever the problem is, I assure you, the knot will untie itself. So it's been, I think social media ties circling back around. I'm convinced that social media will give, as you see in this letter to Mr. Cable, and 30 seconds, I'll wrap this up and we'll go into questions. Jefferson says in this letter, this is 1816, he's retired to Monticello, he's remembering as president, he's writing, I don't remember who, I think Cable might have actually, Joseph Story was a Supreme Court justice, I'm not sure who Cable was, but he says, thinking back when I was president, at the time of the embargo, Jefferson was the first to use an economic tool as a weapon to try to influence foreign policy. It was brand new, no one had ever done that before. The embargo was, he said, very popular across the country, except for a very small minority in New England, who were opposed to the embargo. And they, because they were so, each individual New Englander was so involved with his local government. They each had such a strong participatory role in their government through their locally elected councils. He said this tiny minority was able, it was as if he says the earth had moved under my feet. And this tiny minority was able to force us to withdraw the embargo, even though they were in the minority. He said the reason they were able to do it is because they were so well organized at the township level. And New England, he said, and that's my goal for America. That was his dream for America. He said that every American should have such a role in their government. He said they'd rather have their heart torn from their chest than let a Napoleon take it away. It wasn't possible in 1816, but with social media it is. That we can make the government transparent, we can let people see what the government is doing, this out-of-control spending, which is literally going to bankrupt us, and then give by that knowledge real power and the ability. Ultimately, my goal is, again, through these town hall meetings, figuring out how to make this work in real time. There's a time coming when you'll be able to, for example, one thing I'm going to try to do is at noon on tomorrow, encourage people to contact elected officials at high noon tomorrow to say, no more taxes, no more debt. I'm done. No more taxes, no more debt. Don't drive my kids in the bank. Don't add any more debt to my kids' burden. But there'll come a time when you'll be able to people will be able to do things of their own free will simultaneously. 100,000 people, 500,000 people, 1 million people, 5 million people. Imagine 10 million people all at the same time because of social media and the internet, of their own free will, choosing to take some positive, constructive action with their elected officials. It'll move mountains. I mean, we'll literally be able to move the earth. And that's where the next American Revolution is going to come. I'm convinced it's going to be electronic. And it'll become through transparency and empowering each one of us as free Americans to see and hear what our elected officials are doing and say, no, I didn't elect you to do that. I know what you're doing. I can see you. And I hear you. And you're not going to get away with it. And then the government changes. To me, I think this is the next revolution. So sometimes I may be quoted out of context when they hear me talk about, well, Culberson's a wild-eyed revolutionary. What I'm talking about is through the ballot box and using electrons. It's a digital revolution. As I think it was Buckminster Fuller said that that Gutenberg made us all readers, and Xerox made us all publishers. Well, the internet, now there's a third piece to that, and the internet has made us all journalists. And the internet has literally empowered each and every one of us to be, as free people, able to see and participate in our government in ways that was never possible. A long introduction. There's a lot going on, but this has been a lot of fun for me. I've really enjoyed it. I love the technology, and this is, I think, where the future lies.
Well, as you know, we're wrestling with the technology and using the technology and trying to figure out the best ways to reinvent the way we cover news and disseminate information and communicate with our audience. not any longer just a one-way street. It works both ways. So it's interesting.
It's that evolution.
Yeah.
I've got a specific idea for you about how you want to.
Fire away.
I've thought about it. I'm convinced that what's going to happen is that the old media is going to become an embedded RSS feed in our PDAs that will be able to, if you've seen the movie Minority Report.
We already have that to some extent. I mean,
limited extent, but you can take it a step further. I understand this is going to be very expensive. We're going to stay on with my internet guys, but I want to set up a whole section of my web page to be like a Wikipedia section where I'll have individual constituents be able to come in, people that I trust and rely on. Malcolm Morris, who's a wonderful good man, the CEO and head of Stewart Title, who I just trust implicitly. He's a wonderful good guy. I'd have Malcolm come in. Malcolm, set up a section on my web page like Wikipedia where it says Malcolm Morris giving me, his congressman, and anyone who wants to read my website, his best advice and predictions on where the housing market is going. I'm going to meet with the Houston Association of Realtors on Monday. I have a section for some realtors that I trust, or I represent much of the oil and gas industry in the United States, or based in District 7. Those are wonderful, good people, the petroleum geologists and engineers, people that I know and trust in the industry. I'll give them access to go to my webpage and, like Wikipedia, write on issues, specific legislation, issues with embedded hyperlinks to take people, like Matt Simmons, for example, who's the world expert on what is how much petroleum is really left out there. And so I'm going to set up a section that would be like Wikipedia for my webpage. I understand this is going to be wildly expensive. We'll have to sort through that. But then what it led me to think about for really what would work with I think the Chronicle and other newspapers and the old media to evolve into the new media is, why don't you let me design my own Chronicle? Why don't you let me, as a reader, custom design my own Houston Chronicle that I would receive electronically. RSS feeds are fairly primitive. I mean, it's essentially all I'm receiving now is a headline, something I've got to click on. But you've got the technology, and your internet guys are capable of this. You should be able to design a mobile, because there's some things, there's certain sports I don't only follow soccer. I love football, love college football. Why don't you let me design my own Chronicle?
Actually, that's something that not just at the Chronicle, but in multiple media, we've talked about for probably 10 years now. The notion of being able to design your own version of a site.
Exactly.
So that if you go to a particular site, depending on your preferences, the sports section comes up first.
Just my teams.
Yeah, or just your teams, or whatever combination of sports. Whether baseball, football, opera, rock and roll, you get your,
exactly. The musicians I care about, the country music I like, or the classical music I like.
I think
Very
that's
individual.
been doable for probably 10 years or so. People don't use it as actively or at least they didn't initially. I think when the technology was first available, the folks who tried it found that people didn't use it as actively as they expected it to. That's changing, though, because people are used to, and a whole new generation is growing up who are used to adjusting their Facebook page to, put their friends on top and so forth.
So. Oh yeah, you can pretty much customize. Now Facebook is still, you can customize it to a certain extent. I don't spend as much time on Facebook as I should because it's so time intensive. And they're constantly hammering me quite correctly that I need to spend more time on Facebook. I like Twitter because I can hit it and go, and because I can send out a tweet, and it'll go to my 10,000 followers, and I say retweet this, and they send it to their 1,000 or 500 or whatever, and they send it to their 1,000 or 500 or whatever, and it's instant. But I think if you thought about it in terms of highly individual, make it possible for me to go in and design my own highly personal, individualized Houston Chronicle. Now that does several things for you. It immediately makes it then a really valuable and useful source of information. You are also able with technology, when I know we can do this on emails, you can certainly tell roughly where people are. I mean, with the IP addresses, you can kind of generally tell what zip code they're in, or generally track what things they're interested in.